Hello students, let's talk about the elements of design. The objective for this lesson is to demonstrate an understanding of the elements of design by identifying its use in artwork and applying it visually in a variety of ways. So the elements of design are like the building blocks. They're the tools of art, right? We take these elements, line, color, space, texture, and then we combine them in a variety of ways. So think of elements of design kind of like the ingredients for ice cream, right? Sugar, milk, powder, the toppings, right? Yes, this visually looks nice, but the elements of design are like the ingredients. We combine them together in various ways. So our first element of design is line, and line is a two-dimensional mark on a surface that describes a shape or outline. In sculpture, it's carved and drawn, and line does have expressive qualities. There are many different types of lines, and there's different ways to talk about lines using various descriptive words. Now we've got some examples here of sculptures that use line. Our next word is shape. So shape is a two-dimensional line with no form or thickness. It is flat, just like this cartoon here. It occupies an area. So shapes are made of lines, but they're completely flat. They create an outline. Now here's a few examples of 3D artwork that use shape. And in shape, there are two different types of shapes. There's geometric. These are shapes that are mathematical. They have actual names, right? This is a circle, this is a square, this is a diamond, this is a rectangle. This is what we would typically find in geometry. There are also organic shapes. These are shapes from nature. They tend to be irregular, such as blobs, clouds, leaf shapes, flower shapes, right? They're harder to describe because they're irregular. In sculpture, shapes are typically drawn on the surface or painted on the surface, as you can see in these two examples. Now let's go on to form. Form is a three-dimensional object that has volume and thickness. You can physically hold the object, okay? You are a form. You can physically hold yourself. You can physically touch your hair, right? You are not a shape. You are not flat. Forms are also geometric and organic. So these are some basic forms, right? A cone is like a triangle. A cube is like a square. A sphere is like a circle. So we have an example here of a geometric form and an organic form. And in terms of shape, this cartoon of Stitch, this is a shape. It's flat. Now the sculpture of Stitch as that toy, he is three-dimensional, so he is a form. He's 3D. So shapes are 2D, forms are 3D. Let's talk about value. So value is the lightness and darkness of a color. In sculpture, value depicts light, shadow, and shows form. So value is very important in sculptural works of art. Let's talk about color. Color is amazing, and later on we'll learn all about color. Color is very complex. So color, it's made of light that is reflected off or absorbed by an object. We can see color due to how our eyes have evolved. But again, color is made of light. It adds visual interest, it creates emotion, it also can add meaning to a work of art. When we talk about color, we typically group it into color schemes. And so that's why color theory is a completely separate topic. Now we do organize color according to a color wheel, but sculpture uses colors in many different ways. Let's talk about texture. So, texture is a way a surface feels or is perceived to feel like. So something can actually have texture, such as our hair and our clothing, or we see a sculpture and we assume that is what the texture would be. So light affects how texture appears, right? Without light, we couldn't see the texture. And when we talk about texture, we can say it is visual or tactile. So visual would be what we can see. Tactile is what we could feel. So implied texture, this is texture that is visual only. You cannot feel it in real life. Even if you're looking at a photo of it, the texture is implied. Actual texture is the way a texture actually feels in real life. So your hair has actual texture. Our last word is space. We're not talking about outer space though. So in art, space is the distance or areas around or between objects. So there might be various objects in a sculpture. We think about what is the space around that. We can talk about space of it being open or cramped. So these are some sculptural examples that use open space. And this sculpture here, which is contained in a room, demonstrates cramped space. Space in sculpture is very interesting. It can play around with things like this, where it's playing with the positive and negative space, or it could be a physical installation that you walk inside of, right? There are people inside this sculpture that has areas of open space. Again, an idea of physical space, right? We see these umbrellas, we can walk underneath them. So our experience of the artwork is different due to the use of physical space. Now, another way to talk about space is positive and negative space. We sometimes use this when we're talking about it in terms of drawings and paintings, but in general, positive space is the object. You are positive space. You take up physical space. Negative space is the object around the negative space is the space around the object. So all the empty space around you, that is negative space.